going to dip a little bit deeper in one specific sector, which is not an industry anymore. We will speak about fintech. And it's not an industry anymore because it is a whole way on how we operate. As they say, if it clicks, pays, and connects, then it's definitely fintech. For this session about everything is fintech, we will have with us Alexandros Argyros, founder of Blue Layer, Anthony Danon, angel investor at Rerail, and Christos Chelmis, partner and GM at Revolut. And I would like a very big round of applause.
Okay. Can you guys hear me okay? We're very excited to be here. We're here to speak about one of the biggest trends in tech in the past few years that no one can ignore. And as the thematic, everything is fintech. You know, the way I would position it is whether you're a user looking to book a taxi ride, whether you're looking to order food online, whether you're looking to buy a product or purchase content, what moves behind the scene is actually money. And hence, every company out there today has an opportunity to also become a fintech company. So my name is Alexander Argyros. I'm one of the co-founders of a company called Blue Layer. Before that, I co-founded a company called Moonfair, which is more relevant for today's content, which is a fintech business. And I'm here with two friends, but also two individuals that will help us unpack the concept of everything is fintech. So I'd love to introduce them. First, Adonis. Adonis is the founder of an angel fund called Rerail. They've raised $25 million. They're backed by some of the most prominent fintech founders in Europe and the US. And he's been, for the past 10 years, an investor, but also an angel and an operator. And he's had more than 40 investments in the field. So what I'm excited about is seeing Adonis's, or hearing Adonis's perspective when it comes to the investor lens of fintech. And then the second individual, Christos, who is actually, for the past 8 years, has been with Revolut. He's now a partner with the firm. He joined when the company had 0.5 million customers. Today, Revolut is a breakout winner, as most of you probably know. They have more than 50 million customers. That's 100x, just to help with the math here. And Christos has been part of the journey from the early days. And what I find amazing is also to see his operational experience and what we can talk about today. So with that said, I want to kind of kick it off. We only have 15 minutes for the discussion, so by nature it's going to be a bit high level. But first question for both of you. What does everything is fintech mean to you? And Adoni, let's start with you.
Thanks for having me. Everyone can hear me, I assume. I think you said it rightly, right? Everything in fintech means that money moves the world. Money is everywhere, is embedded everywhere. As for me, financial services is the nervous system of the economy. Similarly, fintech is increasingly becoming a horizontal. And so, as an investor, when you ask me what type of opportunities I'm looking at, I'm looking for companies not building, strictly speaking, in fintech, but in what I call fintech-powered businesses.
Thank you. So maybe we keep the fintech power. We'll come back to that. Christos?
Thanks for having me. So I think I like the statement, fintech is everything, because I think it's true, but I think it also highlights the opportunity. If you think about any business that has data, transactions, or money, really can use financial technology. So, this definition pretty much covers every company, right? So I think that's why you see companies like Revolut, where fintech is in their DNA, they start expanding in other verticals, because everything is fintech.
Super. So, let's unpack the fintech-powered theme. Let's unpack perhaps also what Revolut has been able to do, which is, let's say, a combination of fintech products. Today, perhaps Revolut could be considered a super app. So maybe fintech powered, what does fintech powered really mean? And is fintech, as most people are saying today, is it still a vertical or is it a horizontal? Adoni?
Yeah, I think people have gone to extremes. You know, people say software is eating the world. There's been people that have said fintech is eating the world. I think going a bit more focused into what I'm seeing today when it comes to that, I think there's two types of opportunities. One is where fintech is an enabler, right? It's naturally a stimulant of another market. It supports another market. Examples are, think about logistics. Logistics companies usually have a trade finance element, some lending, working capital. Similarly, health tech companies, digital health. Most people don't think of them as fintech, but behind the scenes, usually you monetize with insurance. You could sell them as a benefit. All of that is financial services, right? So that's the one subcategory I'm seeing a lot of. The second is where fintech is a business model. So it becomes a revenue stream, a predominant revenue stream for some businesses. I think we see that in many different categories. I think vertical software has been a very big proponent of that. Actually has, in some respects, defined the industry because it made it quite exciting for venture capital funds. So can you monetize under the hood of a verticalized software the payments angle? Can you offer the suppliers of a company you're enabling with software lending to enable them? Insurance products, right? And oftentimes it becomes the predominant revenue stream.
And if you were to give us a few examples of companies that probably have, in your view, cracked the fintech-powered angle?
Yeah, I'll start with one that maybe not everyone will know. It's called Toast. It's a public markets company now, but I think 8-10 years ago was a startup. They've built verticalized software for the restaurant industry, right? So if you're a restaurant and you want to manage basically your bookings, your scheduling, and all of that, right? They started as a software, then they started offering a POS, right? Then they started monetizing the payments streams. Then they realized, oh, we can monetize payments for our customers and our suppliers. Oh, actually, we could offer lending on top of that. And so now, if I looked at the figures just before, I think the last year, Toast finished the year with 4.96 billion of ARR, right, of annual revenues. Around 81% of that has been fintech revenues. So around 4 billion of the 4.96 is payment processing, lending, transaction fees, right? That's a really great example. Another example that more people of you will know is Shopify, right? Shopify started as an e-commerce ecosystem app and shop. They've now become arguably not what we think is fintech, but is actually a really big fintech company. I think they finished the year 8.88 billion of annual revenues, and around 73.5% of that was fintech, right? What they call their merchant solutions, which is again payment processing, transaction fees, lending, right? That's 6.53 billion of the 8.88. So you wouldn't think of those businesses as fintech businesses, but when I see opportunities, I look at companies that could be building anywhere where fintech actually can be powering those businesses.
Okay, super. Hence the fintech powered. Maybe switching to Christos very quickly. Looking at the Revolut example, it started as a neobank. Probably you can position it much better than me. Today, as I said, it's a breakout winner. Can you tell us a bit of how that evolution happened to have Revolut today as a super app? Was that planned? Was it accidental?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely not planned, I would say. In the early days, it was simple. We were just trying to find product market fit. We're in survival mode, so we're trying to just solve the problem at hand. But one thing we did well is, since we got traction, we quickly started experimenting with different, let's say, products and features, right? Some worked, some didn't, but the ones that did work, we doubled down fast on them, right? So that's why you ended up gradually and very naturally growing the ecosystem. I think there's an interesting observation that we take for granted when you think about this evolution of Revolut, which is back in the day, we took an unconventional approach. Usual startup advice is focus on one thing, build a sustainable business, and then divert your attention to something different. So we're kind of criticized at the time of being unfocused. We expanded in many countries, we did a lot of products very fast. So everybody was thinking, it's probably not going to work. Hindsight, it's probably one of the reasons we actually won the competition, are the market leaders in Europe, I think. So yeah, not so planned, but it worked out in the end.
With probably, if I heard you correctly, a kind of unconventional strategy, or contrary to the normal. Looking at the success that Revolut has had, let's assume you're an investor and you had an opportunity to back a company that has the potential or following the playbook that Revolut did. Would you invest, or do you think that playbook is closed? And if so, how, and if so, why?
No, but look, obviously I'm biased, so let's get this out of the way.
No, you wouldn't invest.
I would not invest. Okay. I would not invest. I think it's a very tough space. Thinking of the early days of fintech and neobanks, etc., there were tens or hundreds of companies trying to pursue this vision. Either started from maybe travel effects like we did, or through some other verticals, but with the ultimate goal of building a digital bank. I think Anthony can attest to potentially how many of those there were. But if you think about it, there are only two after 10 years or so that have really broke out, which is Nubank and Revolut, at least in the West. It's no coincidence, in my opinion. It's a factor of many things, but I'm thinking at the beginning it's more about low customer acquisition, finding great product market fit so you can acquire a lot of customers very cheaply. Because your competition is really the banks, and they have deep pockets. And so, spending your way to growth is a fool's errand in a way. And also, you need a lot of customers. You need the network effects. Revolut, Nubank work so much better when you have, your friends, family, your circle actually using them as well. So that's one thing. The other thing is, we think of finance and banking as an obvious global thing, but inherently, it's very local, right? Like every jurisdiction you go in, actually as a bank, you need to focus and solve for both the product as well as the regulatory requirements. So it gets very, very complex, very, very fast. So I think that's one big distinction, why it's a tough kind of market to get into. And finally, you want to build a profitable business in banking, you need to build trust. You need to deepen your relationship with the customer. And it's the most precious asset somebody has, their money, right? So it takes a lot of time. To build a brand that people trust takes decades in financial services and a second to lose. So yeah, for these reasons, as I say, I'm out.
Okay, good. Adoni, what do you have to say about that? I mean, would you think super apps are the end game here?
Probably I'm out as well. No, but I'd say first of all, like in 2015, every second deck I was getting was a company starting in savings, in lending, and wanted to become a neobank. So there's swaves of them. I think super apps from a pure idealistic or even theoretical point of view make a ton of sense because of the concentration of network effects, right? But I think it's been much more a thing of the East, much less of the West, maybe because of the fragmentation of a lot of software and kind of adoption across different segments. I think Revolut for me is an outlier. It's a story of, well, I think Revolut actually might, by the way, break that rule and start building be one of the potential super apps in Europe. But I do think it's a story of relentless execution, really high quality, performance-driven culture, and a product DNA. And I think it absolutely takes that. Plus, when fintech wasn't as mature. So I think that's kind of what I'll attest to. I do think, without opening Pandora's box on AI, because I'm sure so many people talking about AI, the one caveat to all that is that I think increasingly businesses are using AI to insource a lot of their fragmented software stack, so there's opportunities to potentially shift those dynamics. But I'm out on a new kind of super app neobank, maybe with a few exceptions, but I'm quite bullish on Revolut for sure.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to close the AI box because we can go in a very big tangent. But okay, any examples you can think of companies that could have a potential to become a super app? Maybe just put it more in perspective, are building fintech products en masse and they're executing at a very impressive pace.
I think it's hard. I think it's very few. Let's talk about ones that are more in headlines, but I think ones that are doing relatively well and are acquiring arguably complementary customer base, which is Trade Republic. out of Berlin. They started as a trading company or doing kind of a bit like Robinhood in Europe, and then they evolved into kind of wealth management and investing, and now they have a banking license. And so you see that tendency of them expanding from a specific product to full-edged banking. If they do own that banking, I don't think we've seen as much adoption yet. Then they own the trust. So the only ingredient missing from there is, I think, performance, culture, and relentless execution, and that's the reason I picked them. I think second to Revolut, I think they're one of the ones that have a really, really good performance-driven culture.
Super. Thank you. I'm looking at the time here.
Yep.
Maybe one last question, Christos, for you. We have, I'm pretty sure, a bunch of founders, aspiring founders in the audience. You've been an operator for 8 years, as we said, impressive experience and success. What would be some of the advice? What would be advice you would give to those founders starting out in a world where everything is fintech?
Yeah, in my experience, and it's a bit cliche, but it's all about the team. So if you're an aspiring entrepreneur or an operator building your team, your department, or have you, I think the focus should be on hiring the right people. You want people that solve from first principles and really understand the problem, especially in fintech or financial services, because it's an industry where there's a lot of inertia. There's a lot of people do things a certain way for a very long period of time. At the same time, as I mentioned before, is very regulated. And so the room you actually have to innovate is the space very narrow. So you want people that are really smart, really understand the problem. And I would start with there. Just focus on the team, hire the best.
And when you think about, at Revolut, maybe what would be the culture you think defined the company as you guys scaled into probably thousands of people today?
So
what's the culture? What would be the cultural traits you would be looking?
Yeah, I mean the culture. I think the culture. You really need to set the culture in the beginning. It's not about finding it in the people, but really understand what works for you and the company. My experience is very isolated. I have spent my majority of my career at Revolut. So the culture is all about, digging deeper into the problem, never settling, never saying no, being very open to challenging the status quo and encouraging this, right? I'll give you an example because I think it's quite helpful. The ability to give your team, so you operate and you innovate, right? So you need to take risks. And with risks come mistakes. So it's very important to encourage mistakes, but be sure that you don't penalize mistakes. You just expect that people will not do the same mistake again. And this kind of culture yields, I think, great results.
Super. Thank you. We're about on time here. Thank you both for your comments. As I said, kind of high-level discussion given the time. But we are around later if you want to grab us. Very happy to discuss further. And for me, the closing remark is, as we said, everything is fintech, and hence the question is not whether a company is a fintech company or not, but it's rather how fintech can be used within every company out there. So thank you for listening.